I want to talk about the language in defining autistic versus non-autistic people. I'm going to be doing some audios about autism versus non-autism. And it's very difficult because it's not apples to oranges in terms of comparisons. It's apples to oranges to grapes to pomegranates to bananas to kiwis, etc., etc., etc. There are so many people out there that are different. They have a different view of the world. And so not all non-autistics are the same. So I want the listener to my audios to be understanding that when I refer to people as non-autistic, I'm not saying they're all the same. Not even all autistic people are the same. I'm also going to, in this audio, not exactly define what autistic versus not autistic means, because I'm making the assumption that individuals that are listening might already know a little bit about it. I also am going to stay away from terms like neurodivergent and neurotypical. I think part of the problem is that when you use the word neurodivergent, it almost creates an outgroup. That's a kind of a social psychology term where someone is different. And when you use the term neurotypical, it means that those people's brains are developed normally. And I don't want to go so far as to say that anyone's brain develops quote unquote normally. Every brain is unique. Every brain is different. You have two parents that bring certain genetic material. They also have different experiences, different environments, different traumas, different knowledge into their relationship. They reproduce, they combine genes, and a child is conceived, gestated, born, and raised. And there's a lot of different processes in that in that time frame that could develop a brain in a certain way. Now, I'm not going to say that any one particular issue, whether it's genetics or upbringing or environment or traumas or this or that, has let me just put it this way, that I think all of those things matter in terms of why someone develops a certain way. So my main point is, when I'm defining autism versus non-autism, I don't want, when I say a non-autistic, I'm not saying they're all the same. I'm not saying they are all quote unquote typical or normal, because that's just not true. Everyone's brain is unique. So I think I wanted to make an audio to state how sometimes I believe that autistic people are playing defense because of the way that the language is formed. Right from the very beginning, the language is normal and not normal. So a non-autistic is normal and an autistic is not normal. When that is a false dichotomy, because nobody is quote unquote normal. I also want to get into into some sociology or social psychology. What is considered normal is a group of, or a set of norms that people conform to when they're out in public. We don't really see what people are like when they're in private most of the time. And in fact, a lot of families, couples, etc., they're very, very hush-hush about what happens at home. So a lot of times what is considered normal is basically how good is someone at playing a part, conforming to the norms that are presented to them by society. That is considered what is normal. And if someone deviates from the norms that society tells them to adapt, they are considered not normal. But that just because someone conforms to a set of norms doesn't mean that they would prefer to do it that way. It doesn't mean if you let them develop a certain way, they might have developed differently. It just means that they were able to successfully conform to norms more so than others. It doesn't mean that that's just who they are. So, in closing, my main point is to try to get a grip on the language of and the definitions of what autism, in labeling autism versus labeling what is non-autistic versus brain development, early childhood development, in utero development, different things both parents present to the table genetically or personality-wise, traumas that people have, the way society is structured. It's a very complex thing, and I don't want to oversimplify it. Now, in the future, I might just use the terms autistic versus non-autistic, but I think I explained why it's more complicated than that. So I want to be able to illustrate some of these terms to create a strong foundation of some of the issues that I'm going to be talking about in future audios. Thank you.